a recent group that I was working with, someone mentioned that how someone perceived themselves was so different than how others perceived them. This is a very common thing that comes up when I'm working with the group and we're kind of reflecting on ourselves and having other people reflect on them. And so often there's a delta, a gap between how we're perceiving ourselves and how we are being perceived. And one of the most impactful, profound things I have heard around comparison was from Rich Livin. And what he says is, we are comparing how we feel on the inside with how someone looks on the outside. And that's never a fair comparison. So let's look at that a little more closely. Well, what's happening on the inside? On the inside, we have our own thinking, we have our own felt sensation, and so we have a lot going on inside. We have our own story, our own interpretation of all of the things that have to do with us, right? And then we look at someone else and we can only see what's on the outside. We can only see and interpret the things that we see from an external perspective. And even beyond that, when we're looking at someone else, we're doing it through our own lens, right? So we're doing it based on, well, I feel kind of, for example, I feel kind of crappy, and I look at someone and I just see someone who is put together or articulate or dealing with something in a constructive way. But that doesn't mean that that's reality. It's my interpretation of what's going on there. And the way I'm feeling over here has to have some impact, some influence over how I'm interpreting what's going on there. And so if I'm feeling kind of crappy about myself in a certain moment, if I'm having some insecure thinking in the moment that I've held on to, that I believe, and I look at a shiny object on the other end, I'm less likely to look very closely because I'm already coming from a place of insecure thinking about me. And so that person looks bright and shiny, right? And what I don't see is their own personal thinking, their own personal sensations and feelings. And so not only am I not comparing apples to apples, how I'm thinking and feeling on the inside with how they're thinking and feeling on the inside, the way I'm interpreting how they even look on the outside is coming from a place of my own insecure thinking about me. And so even if something were slightly off on the other end, I'm less likely to see it because our interpretations are from the inside out. They start here inside based on whatever thinking I'm having in the moment. And that's what we don't tend to appreciate or acknowledge when we are in the comparison game. And so next time you find yourself in this comparison game, look again. Consider that you are not comparing apples to apples. You are not comparing how you think and feel on the inside with how someone's thinking and feeling on their end. And what we're also, this is almost an underlying thing. We're almost projecting this moment of insecure thinking as a pattern of, we're making it longer than it is. It's kind of, well, we all have insecure thinking and we all have secure thinking and it comes and goes. That's what thinking does. But when we're in an insecure thought, we forget all the secure thinking we have, and we just piece together all of the insecure thinking that we remember, because that's where we're coming from. And so we start to notice that things are so much more complicated and complex than our mind has us believe. In a moment of I'm insecure and they're confident, I don't have my shit together and they have their shit together. In a moment of that, we elongate that and just have that be who we are. But we know that thinking comes and goes. We know that can only be a thought in the moment that we have held on to and believed. And when we're comparing ourselves in that moment with how someone else is perceived and seen in that moment as well, I mean, it can very quickly, we can very quickly see how unfair a comparison that is, and how comparison doesn't even make sense, because we are so much more than the conclusion that we have about ourselves in any one particular moment. We are so much more than that. And so comparison doesn't even make sense. It's almost funny to even think that we compare, even though we do. Look in this direction, see what you see. I'll see you next time.